Hey everyone, welcome back to the Corridor Cast, and today's episode is proudly sponsored by Audible. More on that in a bit, but today's guest is Andrew Price, known on YouTube as the Blender Guru, and he's basically the world's foremost expert on educating people on how to use a 3D program called Blender. Fantastic guy, really smart Australian. We got him here on the podcast to talk about all kinds of things like photorealism and making tutorials and running a business. He also runs a company called Polygon, which provides all kinds of textures for 3D artists. Yeah, let's get to it.
You know, I would see your thumbnails on YouTube and suggested stuff, and like, you know, what is the photorealism one?
Mhm.
Your video essay on like photorealism and talking about all that.
Mhm.
And you know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't have Blender, so why do I need to watch a Blender tutorial if I'm not using Blender?" And
Yeah.
it's like, yo, you guys got it all wrong. You guys got to watch these videos, man. Your videos are so good.
Oh,
They're
thanks.
so good.
Yeah, so I
Really?
feel like we
Okay.
should
Yes.
establish you use a 3D program called Blender, which is a
Yeah.
free-to-use program for pretty much everything 3D, and it does actually a lot of stuff. Years ago, it didn't do as much stuff, but these days it's doing a lot. Clint and I, on the other hand, we primarily use Cinema 4D,
Mhm.
which is a very different 3D package, but at the end of the day, it does the same thing, just
Yes.
different user interface.
Yeah.
So we might not be able to get much out of a direct tutorial that you make,
Mhm.
but all the concepts are there. So it's still like an interesting
Yeah.
thing to watch, especially because a lot of your tutorials kind of are based around like the theory and
Mhm.
why you do certain things, as opposed
Yeah,
to
I like
press these
those.
buttons to get to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. My initial because I've been doing it for like 10 years now, making YouTube tutorials.
Man,
And at the start it was all like you got to push the buttons in the right order, this kind of thing. And then I realized, like, you know, when I'm watching a tutorial myself, if I only learn how to push the buttons in the correct order, then I'm only going to be able to make that thing that person made.
yeah,
And so then it was like, okay, well then how could you, you know, without explaining every single thing, explain the concepts of what you're doing? And so lately, the most recent style of tutorial I've done is like, I'm going to show you how to make this finished scene, but I'm not going to do it over 2 hours like I would usually.
Mhm.
I'm going to compress it to 10 minutes or 20 minutes and just show you the actual like important things or a technique that I picked up, or like, don't use this type of light when you're lighting through the interior because it's just going to make extra render times, or this is a better style than this. And then you sort of speed up the rest of it. And I gave it as an experiment, and it worked really well. So yeah.
I really like the format. It's very,
Cheers.
very, very satisfying to watch. So the button by button. Well, couple things. So first off, like, I think that your method of doing it currently, where it's like the 20-minute video and you're kind of commentating on your style and what you did, and like you're hitting the key moments that you think need to be talked about, the important stuff. That's cool because it leaves the audience, when I'm watching a tutorial and you're like, type in 56 for the opacity and 32
Yeah.
for the scale. It's like, oh, I gotta get it just right. And if I don't, then it's not gonna look right.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you do it, it almost gives it, well, it totally gives the audience the ability to be more creatively free, right? And it lets the audience and gives the audience a chance to do their own thing and experiment in their own way, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool teaching method and a teaching style.
Cheers.
So yeah,
Thanks,
I'm a big believer in that, but at the same time, when you're first starting out, you have no idea what you're doing. So like, to a certain degree, when you literally have never used the program before, you have to have your hand held through it because
Yeah.
you don't even know what a button is
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've made a lot of tutorials too, so it's like this is really interesting talking with another fellow tutorial maker. Because I feel like we've had different processes over the years. Because I know the way I like to make tutorials is I will practice an effect. Even if I already know how to do it, I will make that same effect like 3 times in a row, like just over and over and over again from scratch, so that by the time I'm actually sitting down to record, I know the exact next step to do. And even still, I'll take like breaks halfway through a tutorial where I'll just be talking and then I'll just stop talking and stare at my screen for like 30 straight seconds. I'll just and so then you click on the pen tool, and then yeah, because I always go back through and I edit out all the breaks. I try to make it as seamless as possible. Or not necessarily seamless. I don't care too much about the seams as much as just trying to get the information to be the most efficient it can be.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what it comes down to. I don't
It
want to
is,
waste their
it
time, but I
is.
also don't want them to be lost.
Yes.
And so it also depends on the kind of effect. If I'm doing kind of a more easier beginner style effect, I'll be a little bit more detailed with what to do. If it's a little bit more of an advanced effect, I won't even bother teaching them like, okay, this is how you make a mask. I'll just be like, okay, hit F on the keyboard to feather it out.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's an important point. Is like you can't explain everything because you would irritate everybody. Like if you were
Yeah.
talking to them like they were a baby the entire time, and now you use the left click on your thing to select and drag over to the, like you would just drive everybody up the wall.
It's one of the things I find kind of amusing about Andrew Kramer's tutorials from Video Copilot. Some consider him to be like the king of like tutorial making. He makes great tutorials, but I always find it funny. He'll be doing like his most recent tutorial, which was about like these letters getting chopped in half by like asteroids flying through them. It's a pretty advanced procedural effect inside of After Effects, and he's going through all these advanced maneuvers, and then he still is like, all right, now I'm gonna go up to edit, copy, and then click on this other layer and go up to edit, paste, as opposed to just be like, at this point, you probably know how to hit Control C and Control V, like
right, yeah,
to copy and paste. It's just
yeah,
one of those things like, huh.
Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard to get it right, and you never will because somebody will be more advanced and somebody will be more beginner. I've had people on the same video say you're going too fast and you're going too slow.
Right.
On the same video. I mean, it's just they're at different speeds to other people.
Do you record your audio while you're actually doing the recording of the screen recording?
Yeah, it's
Or
not.
do you like
It's
record
not
your
like
voice after the fact?
I do both.
Oh, okay.
It
okay.
really depends on what I'm doing. So like if it's a theory video, like photorealism or something,
Yeah.
where it's like sort of more fleshed out production, like I'll just do the audio.
Yeah.
Or now I've got the webcam, so I just do the video thing, and then later on I'll do the visuals to it. Trouble with that is if you go too professional, I've noticed you kind of lose. I don't know what the word is. You lose a kind of casualness that some people actually like. Whereas when
YouTube's
you
all about
record
that
it,
casualness, man.
it is.
It's like the more professional you get with your production in a YouTube video, it's like the less relatable it is and the less.
I know.
And that's not the case for all like videos or channels, but it tends to be like the biggest example is comparing Hollywood stars coming to YouTube, like Will Smith versus Jack Black. Will Smith has like a huge amount of money going into each of his videos. Very obviously, it's shown on camera.
Right.
Whereas Jack Black is like, obviously, I'm recording this on a cell phone and my son's editing it.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't get any more classic OG YouTube than Jack Black right now.
That's true.
Whereas Will
He's
Smith
done
is,
really well, like integrating in the YouTube culture.
Yeah.
Like just all the same jokes, the dumb, like, it's like, wow, he's been watching YouTube for a while, I think. Yeah.
But I mean, that was a bit of a derailment from what you're saying. It's like, you don't want to add too much production value to your thing because maybe that'll make it a little bit, I don't know, like less.
Yeah, you lose.
Relatable.
You lose, like, because you have to basically, if you've got prepared words, you're going to say, like I've written out scripts, right? I write out the script and then I say it word for word. And I listen back to it and I go, shit, it sucks. I sound like I'm selling Febreze or so, like I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, like horrible. Nobody wants to listen to that.
I feel like a lot of people can tell the difference between listening to prepared statements and just off the cuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the thing I've learned. You essentially have to become an actor. You have to pretend as though I'm reading this for the first time.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to go about this casually. And I have to, and so like when I'm doing the videos, and I'll come up to this part that I know and I've spoken about before because I've done 3 or 5 takes on it, but you have to act as though I just had this funny idea or this, like, it's not being phony. It's the opposite of phony. It's like if you were to read it off the cuff, this is how I would sound. But if I just read off the cuff, this video is going to be 2 hours long because it's going to take 2 hours to get to the point.
Yeah.
So it's rehearsed, but it's sounding like it's off the cuff. And it's very hard to do, but
I know exactly what you mean. I've been making videos where I'm having to like memorize a lot of lines to deliver to camera.
Yeah.
And it's like what I actually write down and then I say it out loud and it's like, I don't sound like that. Why did I write that way?
Yeah.
So I ended up having to just kind of like come up with the main things I want to say and then just improvise the actual.
That's what
thing I say.
I'm learning as well. If you write it word for word, you will actually sound too static.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just give sort of the main bullet points and the kind of the flow, you can riff on it a bit. Yeah.
Before we go any further, I want to just listen to a message from our sponsor.
Their first sponsor?
Yeah, no, it's our first sponsor.
Dude,
It is
that's
one of my
awesome.
favorite sponsors, Audible. I know, right? Okay, check it out. All right, the reason why I really like Audible sponsorships is because it basically just gives me an excuse to talk about a book I really liked. So today's sponsor is Audible, and the book I'm going to be talking about is called Fear the Sky. It's a sci-fi book, takes place on Earth, basically getting invaded by aliens. So you can actually get your first audiobook free when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com/corridorcast. Or you can even text message CorridorCast to 500-500. Those are both good ways to get into this program. So Fear the Sky, what kind of book is this? It's a sci-fi book. Basically, aliens, like there's a million aliens on a spaceship heading towards Earth, and they don't care about humans. They just want our planet. And, humanity is not really any the wiser right now, except that they've sent 8 special force androids ahead of time, imprinted with very smart people. So it's like you got actual aliens running around in android bodies here on the Earth. And their whole purpose is to basically deactivate the whole nuclear program on Earth, because the aliens, they want to live here. They don't want it to be all radioactive. And so that's the thing. There's a scientist on Earth who has discovered this whole plan, and so now they're trying to form a resistance against them. And they have to do it very stealthily because there's these satellites in orbit who have lasers that can like kill people instantly from space. And so it's this really cool story of trying to fight back against an overwhelmingly powerful force without any of that powerful force even noticing that they're resisting. It's a really fun thriller, really high-paced, high-octane science fiction. Yeah, no, it's a great book. I've read it twice, or rather, I should say, I've listened to it twice, because I have. That's how I've listened to it. It's a good book. It's the first of the trilogy, so there's 2 more books after that. And yeah, I recommend it. And if you want to get this book itself, you can do that by going to audible.com/corridorcast, or even text messaging CorridorCast to 500-500. They also have things like Audible Originals, which are exclusive audio titles created by celebrated storytellers from worlds as diverse as theater, journalism, literature, and more. They're pretty sweet. It's like Audible's like, hey, we want to have some sweet original content too, and they're making it. So check it out. It's part of your membership. Thanks for sticking through that. I do highly recommend checking out Fear the Sky. But in the meantime, let's get back to this podcast and talk with Andrew. And we're back. I recommend that book. It's a good one.
That was a great ad read. I really liked it.
That was funny. I've never done that before.
Yeah.
How does it feel having your first sponsor?
It feels pretty great.
Cool.
It
Yeah.
means that this is
It's free
becoming
cash.
a thing that can, what is free cash?
Well, we
Did
get to
they
bring
did
on
they
more
reach
people.
out to you? Can I ask, did they reach out to you? You reached out to them?
Well, we already have a pre-existing relationship with Audible, so I think it may be flourished out of that. I don't know. I don't actually deal directly with the brands. That's like more of a Jake and Christian thing.
Right.
Yeah, it lets us bring on more cool people like yourself to the podcast, and yeah, just makes it all a little bit easier for everybody. So
I was curious. I got some questions for you.
Oh.
Corridor Digital.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, well, it's Corridor now. Just Corridor.
Yeah.
You must get hit up all the time for advertising requests. How do you decide, this is one that I will
Just say no to everything. Kind of. That's a very, very
No, but
rough
that's-
oversimplification.
You've got
but it's
it,
like,
right?
I don't know how much Corridor as a company gets hit up. Those emails kind of get filtered out before they reach me.
Mm.
But I know I personally get hit up a lot of the time to help out, like maybe do some freelance on the side or like do stuff. And most of the time I'm just like, I don't have the time or energy for that. Sorry. And it's usually from friends being like, hey, you're someone I know who does visual effects. Can you do some visual effects for me? And I'm like, listen, if I was unemployed, I would take you up on this, but I'm struggling to find my own time right now.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, if it's like personally speaking outside of work, if it's something that interests me,
Mm.
like right now I'm learning C4D and Octane, so
Mm.
like if it's like, hey, need something rendered, it's like, man, I'm doing this in my free time, like of
Yeah.
course, yeah,
Mhm,
let's go.
mhm, yeah.
But otherwise, like I usually turn down most stuff because like I want to focus on my work here at work,
Yeah.
and not get too excited about stuff outside of work. I want to put my creative energy here.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
I will
yeah.
accept sometimes I'll accept jobs outside of work, but that's mostly just because it's like, the most important thing is that it doesn't impact Corridor.
Mhm.
It's like, is this something I can do in like a day or two over the weekend? I'll do that. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, the vast majority of the time I don't do anything.
I think that's this. Like, I listen to a lot of the Tim Ferriss podcast.
Okay.
He talks about, he has like top athletes, actors. And I think he was talking about James Cameron or something. He was talking to like an assistant for like a huge director, and his sole job was to say no to people. Like, it's basically
No.
the filter, and like, just hundreds of requests a day, but he has to read them because every now and then there would be like,
Yeah, you get the ones that are worthwhile.
yeah, go on the Conan show or whatever, like where it would just be like, okay, this actually fits with what I know they would want. But their default answer for everything is no. And it has to be no because otherwise you would get nothing done.
No time, yeah.
There's a great book called The One Thing. And it's about that, like prioritizing your life. And it gives these examples of like these top like contributors, like scientists who, you know, most scientists at best might put out like one paper every 3 years or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's this one scientist who does like 6 or 7 a year. And then they're like, what does he do differently? And it's like, well, he shuts himself off from the world. He only teaches for like at this university for 3 months. Then he closes his door. Everybody knows he's working and nobody and if you go to his website and you try to reach him, he says, I don't have an email address because if you need to reach me, you already know how to.
Oh, snap. No
Yeah, it's like,
way.
it's this idea of like,
right there,
man.
when you let other people, there's another one, email is a to-do list that anyone in the world can add to,
Oh gosh.
which is so true,
I have
right?
thousands
Dude.
of unread emails.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's like
Is your Gmail just like thousands?
It's like 420,000 or something like that. 420. Wow. No, but
Like-
but it's because I get
Blaze
a
it.
lot of like emails. Like every time I get a new subscriber, every time I get a new mention on Twitter, that all just goes to my one email address. So
You
it all
don't
gets
mark them as
filtered out.
read?
No, it's automatically getting filtered. So it's not in like my
Oh,
main
okay.
email, but it still adds to my overall email unread list.
Yeah. Gmail's got to start culling that stuff for us because we're not going to do it. Everybody's got hundreds of thousands of emails in their Gmail. We're
And on
never
top
going
of that,
to
I'm
read
just
it.
kind of
Yeah.
bad at self-management of stuff like that.
Well, most of it's junk mail, though, you know, just
Right.
the stuff that. But this is actually something I wanted to ask you.
Mm.
You
Oh, yeah.
You're running Polygon, right?
Yeah.
You're married.
Mhm.
Do you have a kid?
Yeah.
You have a kid.
Just turning 1 in a few days.
Oh
Okay.
wow! Congrats.
Okay. Wow. And you're running your YouTube Blender Guru.
Mm.
What else? Hobbies? Anything?
Do you have time for hobbies?
Yeah, no, I mean, I play like an hour of Overwatch
Okay.
at night.
So-
About it.
Okay, that counts.
How do you manage all of your stuff, man? Like, what are your time management skills like? How's that working for you? Like, how do you do it? How do you do all the things that you want to do and raise a family? You know, and there's a lot of stuff, man.
I mean, okay, so I don't want to pretend like I've got it all together. No one has it all together.
I have
And-
every single aspect of my life. put
Yeah. Wren
is a
is
bold-faced
the
lie.
exception. It's I feel like you just make room for it as you go. It's like, okay, I had a baby and now this is my weekend. Like maybe we can't go out together. Baby's got to go to sleep at certain times. So now I'm just doing this and that sort of fit in there. And then it's like Polygon. Okay, now we've just launched models. And so now we've got to hire a modeling team and we've got to manage those models, the number of vertices, and you hit a new challenge. Like, oh, the artists, some of the work that's being released isn't up to par. Why did that happen? So then you've got to put in, this sort of thing. And it just sort of tags on. And along the way, what you have to do is realize when you're not using your time optimally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So replying to YouTube comments is not the best use of your time because anybody could do that. Anybody could pretend or reply on my behalf or do something like that. That doesn't require the best use of my time. What's the best use of my time is doing the only thing that I can do that no one else on my team can do, which is YouTube videos.
Right.
So that's the best use of my time. And the last year, I've realized I've been so preoccupied with the Polygon stuff that I haven't been able to spend the right amount of time at YouTube. So that was a time error and inefficiency of my time. And it's like it's asking yourself constantly, is this the best use of my time? Is this the most valuable way to spend my time? And usually it's not. Like most of the day you're doing stuff which is not the best use of your time. But it's like being aware of it and trying to guide it back. That's what I mean. The book, The One Thing, that's really good. I'd recommend that.
So this professor, this writer, this scientist that you were talking about just now,
Yep.
sounds like he secludes himself. That's his method of dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
He'll seclude himself. He'll lock the door. No email. I'm not going to give people a chance to get to me.
Yeah.
So
and
that I
it
can.
sounds like an asshole move, right? And that's the thing. People don't want to do it. They don't want to say. That's why saying no to people via email is so hard. Like people are like, oh, I don't know. How do you say no? It's like the alternative is like, well, they're the asshole. They were the one that was basically asking you to give up some of your time to answer their request. Like it's not rude to say that this is my time, and I can hearing it does sound like it's an asshole move, but it's like it's not rude to value your time. And like what I tell people, like my way of saying no is like it's nothing personal. As a blanket rule, I just don't agree to I don't know, book request or a whatever, because I'm choosing to focus my time on Blender Guru and Polygon so I can make more tutorials for more people.
Yeah, I know
Everyone's
people
happy
are
with it.
always asking for more tutorials.
Oh yeah.
The moment you publish a new tutorial, they're like, all right, where's the next one? You're like, oh, come on. Give me a
come
moment.
Yeah,
I've got a voracious appetite for
Do
tutorials.
you read a lot of books?
Yeah. I'm one a month. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
do you
not a
primarily listen or physically read?
Physically read.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
I do really like physically reading books.
Yeah.
It's hard to put aside the time to actually do that.
Yeah. I
So-
I got the Kindle. I love the Kindle.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so good because it's
Man.
instant,
Yeah.
Everyone says it, but like I'm such like a physical book kind of guy. I like
Mhm.
turn the pages and like making marks in the book and whatnot.
I don't
But-
like the fact that it's like when you open the book, it's like now you got this huge stack there and this tiny little page, and you gotta like hold it down, hold it up with your elbow while you read it.
I hear you.
It's like I
yeah.
love the Kindle. It's like
So I recently read The Expanse. There's like the first 3 books at least, but I read them in physical book form, which is the first time I'd done that in a very long time because I
Yeah.
usually use Kindle.
Yeah.
And it was like a refreshing experience being able to actually turn the pages. But by the end of it all, I was like, I am not going to continue doing that because it's just like it's so
Mm.
inconvenient carrying around a big book. And then it's like it's heavy, and it's like all the complaining that I can do about this is something that humanity's never dealt with. So whatever. But I'm gonna stick with just reading Kindle off my phone because I got a big phone.
Oh, there you go.
Nice big screen.
Yeah.
It's convenient.
It's
It sounds
backlit.
convenient.
I can.
And it's usually way cheaper, the Kindle version.
Yeah.
No
But
shipping.
I do the vast majority of my book reading through listening, just because it's
Mm,
anytime I'm walking my dog, driving to work, half an
Mhm.
hour each way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in LA, you'd be silly not to use that time in the car to learn something or
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
What would
man.
you say? Speaking of learning, what would you say are your top 3 nonfiction books for like bettering your life?
Ooh, snap, man. Well, I mean, it's not like one size fits all, but like, okay, if you want to get into business, you
Sure,
want to
yeah.
have your own thing, I highly recommend the E-Myth. Terrible name for a book.
E-Myth?
The E-Myth, which stands for the entrepreneurial myth.
Oh, I thought it was like electronic
I
myth.
know, that's why it sounds so dumb.
Reminds me of
Ah.
I have this 360 camera that I put on a pole, and Clint's always saying, "You got your E staff."
Dude, it's like an electronic like Gandalf staff, man. It's hilarious. On his E-board with his E staff. So the E-Myth for
Yeah, so
business
people who want to
entrepreneur.
do business, what it distills is like the number one reason that most, especially if you're an artist, I recommend that book because so many artists, or like if you're a chef, if you're good at what you do, the book uses this analogy of like there's a pie maker, right? She makes really good pies, and all her friends say you should open up a pie store, and she's like, I'll open up a pie store. So she has a pie store, and then 2 years later, she's like not being able to pay the bills. She gets into work at like 5 a.m. She leaves at like midnight. Her life is a mess. And it's like, what's happened is that she is a technician. A technician meaning like she does the technical work. She does the thing that you're selling. But to be a successful business person, you have to give that up to somebody else. You have to release the reins. You have to be good at delegating. And to delegate, you have to be able to communicate. Like, how do you make a good pie? Because if I just give it to a bunch of chefs and say, all right, you do the pie thing, they're going to mess it up. So it's like the book explains very well, which I haven't seen any other book do very well, is like for an artist, for somebody who does the work, it's so hard to give that up. But it gives the real example that like if you don't, you won't succeed. Most small businesses will fail for this very reason, that you're good at this one thing and now you made it your business and it's not going to work like that. You have to be able to hire other people to do the thing, because otherwise the business isn't going to run itself. Like somebody has to run the business and that's your role. If you want to be a technician, if you just like making pies, go work for somebody who makes pies, right? And it's an uncomfortable read if you are, especially if you run a business where that's currently you. It'll be a very uncomfortable read.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah. I mean, anyone who reads it will be like, oh no, this is me. I do this too much, But it's the alternative is you just don't read it and then your business will fail or whatever,
Yeah. So how did you go from like starting Polygon, right?
Mhm.
And you enjoy working in 3D, you enjoy being in Blender, and then you have to pass that off to somebody else. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, well, so it was before Polygon actually. So Blender Guru, like we started the first product I ever made was an ebook, which I wrote, and it was a success, and it made enough money that I could quit my job. I was a debt collector at Toyota.
Really?
I was.
Whoa.
I would call. I wasn't the physical one. I'm not big enough to be the physical.
I was about to say.
But I would call them up on the phone and go, "You got to pay."
That sounds stressful, man.
You get one a day, which would go mental at you, and you go, "All right, that's my one a day." But everyone else most people are just like, "Oh, I forgot to pay."
Yeah, I bet most people already know.
Yeah.
It's just like facing reality, like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
But
This
then
is
you
the
meet
moment I've
those.
been dreading.
Yeah, but then you have those guys that are. Yeah, man, some people. It opened my world to like the fact that people just take on incredible amounts of debt, not realizing the paperwork because they're like, yeah, but I got that truck, that's mine now, and it's like, dude, the interest you're paying is insane. Like they're defaulting on like their second payment. It's like, dude,
That sounds stressful.
yeah, nah, but anyway,
So you sold your first book.
yeah. So I sold my first book. I quit my job at Toyota, and then
What was the name of that book, by the way?
The Wow Factor.
The Wow Factor.
$47 each. It was expensive.
Wow, that's like a textbook.
Yeah, but it was basically like 20 tutorials rolled into one. It was
Okay.
like teaching you how to do the like color grading, glow, glare, specular highlights
Now is this in Blender or
in
After
Blender?
Effects? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so I did that, and then I think my second one was the Nature Academy, which was even bigger thing. That was like a series of video tutorials with free models, so like plant models, tree models, like textures of bark, that kind of thing. And I was taking all those photos myself, and I made the plants myself. And then for the next product I made was the Architecture Academy, and that was when I started hiring people to help me build the assets, because we wanted to make like a library of furniture and textures, and it's basically the Polygon of today.
Gotcha. Now, at what point in that process did you read E-Myth?
Just recently.
Oh, okay. But you started figuring that out way back then, though. That like, hey, you can't do all this on your own. You have to get some help. And that was
Yeah.
when you started delegating away some of that technical work.
Yeah, my dad gave me a course. He bought me for Christmas like this
All right.
internet marketing course
Okay.
in Australia.
Cool.
And it was like a 3-day thing or something like that. But I learned what was possible, and something that they taught a lot in the course was like, you got to have a VA, virtual assistant, hire one in the Philippines, super cheap, and they're really good. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then they're like, no, you need one. I'm like, why? And it's like, who's handling your emails? I'm like, of course it's me. It's like, well, no. How are you going to do that when you get to this scale? Like, you have to
Right.
start delegating. And it kind of like drilled into me the value of being able to hire people, and then that's taken care of. And then that is what will enable you to do what you do well, maybe make a better product. Because the thing is, like, if you're just like answering email all day, think of the disservice you're doing to the customers that you aren't making the next product, or you're not doing a free update for that thing that they all bought. Like,
Yeah.
you could be giving real value to the masses of people, but because you're answering a single email, you're not doing that. Well, that's a huge disservice to all these hundreds of thousands of other people, you know?
Yeah.
It's like if Corridor was to, answer every email that got sent in or every YouTube comment, like, how frequent would your uploads be?
Every other decade or so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Right. So whereas when you're uploading regularly, you're bringing satisfaction to the masses, right? It's like, that's like when you put it in that context, it's one or the other. Well, then obviously that's the smart one.
So how far along doing all those things did you get the inspiration to start Polygon?
Yeah, it was
Polygon spelled with 2 I's, by the way.
two
Right?
eyes.
So is it Polygon?
No, just Polygon.
Polygon.
Polygon, I know. Well, every name is taken. It's
No,
like,
I totally hear you.
dude, I spent like a week going through all the different names to name the company, and it was like, so it had to be something which was related to 3D, but wasn't so targeted that it would like limit us in the future.
Yeah.
Like if we just made it like textures.com, that's a real
or
website.
like Blender 3D textures.co.
Exactly. Yeah, like then what? We're gonna start selling 3ds Max. It doesn't fit the name anymore. So it's like, and eventually I realized like you have to go with a misspelling. You have to do the typical startup thing: remove a letter, add a letter, change the letter. So
I hear ya.
Polygon. And then I didn't even know that then Polygon is a big company with a Y, Polygon. That's that big like game.
Yeah, journalism company, right?
Journalism.
Yeah, like game reviews and.
And I was like, that's annoying. Oh well. But yeah.
So real quick, I just, for those of you watching or listening who don't know anything about 3D modeling or texturing or lighting or anything like that, I want to quickly just break down what a texture is. Because most of the time when people think, I'm just going to slap a texture onto that, they think that you just take a picture of like cardboard or something
Mm-hmm.
and apply it to a box, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
They just think that like maybe that picture is being wrapped around a box, but it's so much more than that, because it's not just a picture. It's like light interacts with cardboard or wood or any material for that matter, this carpet here, in very different ways, and there's lots of different channels within that texture that dictate that. So, I mean, do you want to kind of break down what makes, like, what are all the shaders within a single texture?
Yeah, for sure. So basically for every texture, so let's use the example of a wood table, right?
Okay.
There's the color, right? And that's the one everyone knows. It's what you would get if you were to stand over it with an iPhone and take a photo of a wood table. You'd see the color of it.
And that color includes like all the oranges and yellows and even the black. Like
the grain, everything that you would see with the, well, yeah, it should be just the raw color of like the actual material underneath it. Then on top of that, you have got gloss. Gloss or roughness. Those are that. So that is a map called the Glottal Roughness Map. They are interchangeable terms. They're just inverts of each other. Some
Right.
software uses roughness, some software uses gloss, but they're the same thing, just inverted.
we're roughness guys over here, unlike you glossy guys over there.
Yeah, and that one is determining how sharp the reflection is. So a mirror obviously is the sharpest of all reflection because
Like
it's
chrome.
chrome. That's super sharp. Whereas rubber is one of the most diffused. You wouldn't see your reflection in rubber because it's so smoothed
Yeah.
out. But there is, amazingly, the same amount of reflection in rubber as there is in a mirror. It's a dielectric material, assuming that it's not metal, which like chrome, that would be something else. But it's like the same amount of reflection. It's just like spread out in such a large way on the rubber that it looks like you're not seeing reflection, but there is reflection.
I hear. So it's like when you have a mirror, the light ray is bouncing off of that mirror and heading right back at you.
Yeah.
And that's a very sharp angle. Whereas the more rough it is or the less glossy it is, that that reflection angle kind of gets more and more outwards until it's like rubber, where it's like hitting it and then directly going sideways. Is that kind of?
Yeah, it would. I mean, I gotta make sure I say it correctly, but yeah, it's like the more porous something is, the more the rays are just gonna bounce off in random directions.
Okay.
So like a brick or a concrete or something like that, you're not seeing the reflection because it's all like bouncing around. I'm sure I'm messing something up.
But that is
anyway, yeah.
different from specular, like a specular map, right?
So that is the confusion. Specular was the old workflow
Okay.
where you had to tell the rendering engine how much reflection this thing should have. Now we don't use the specular as much anymore.
Okay.
Shouldn't be used, really. If you're using a metallic workflow, this is getting like really like inside baseball, but it's like, yeah, there's like, so PBR, physically based rendering, that's what it stands for.
Yeah, it is.
That came along. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I guess like the last 3 to 5 years, it sort of started to pop up. Most game engines now use PBR, and a lot of other, remarkably still, some offline renderers don't handle like a metallic workflow. I think V-Ray is one. I could be totally wrong on
I
that.
tried using V-Ray. I didn't like it.
There's a lot of reasons not to like it. But anyway, yeah, there's what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so the specular map was there to show like how much reflectivity this surface should have, but reflectivity is different to the roughness of the reflection. So a dielectric material, that's a technical term, but it basically is like 90% of materials because it's a material that is not metal. So in the real world, there is two types of materials. There is a dielectric material and there is a metal material. Okay, and the
It's either metal or it's not.
Yeah, a metal material would have, could have higher ranges of like index of refraction, which would be like the reflectivity. Whereas a dielectric material is going to have, by default, the index of refraction will be 1.45, which is like the base. I mean, it could be slightly more, slightly less.
Okay.
But that is the base of it, which means the reflectivity should be the same. So that's what I mean. Like rubber and this wooden table, tile, that will all have the same reflection. The differences in its reflectivity appearance would be in the glossy map or the roughness.
That makes sense.
How rough it actually looks. So that's why when you use a proper shader that accounts for this. So we've got one in Blender, the principal BSDF, based on this Disney shader system, which works amazingly. You just keep the specular value the same. It's there if you want artistic control, but you should just leave it. And then you just tweak the roughness depending on if it's paper, you turn the roughness all the way up. If it is chrome, you turn it all the way down. You know.
The way I've always liked describing like roughness versus glossy, or not necessarily roughness versus glossy, but like no roughness versus full roughness is like a Christmas ornament. One of those like nice reflective red Christmas balls. If you crank up the roughness, suddenly it's a frosted Christmas ball.
Yes.
It gets more and more frosted, more rough it gets.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. That's a good,
So beyond that, we have, now we have to tell the light what angle it's hitting it. So we use normal maps. We used to use bump maps. And a bump map is basically just a map that tells the renderer the geography, the topography of an object or a material. But now we use normal maps. Now, why is that? What is a normal map?
Okay, so a normal map is, okay, so I will be honest. I have heard that there is a difference between a bump map and a normal map. So a bump map was just black and white. It's a black and white map, and it would just go up and down. The normal map, from my understanding, has an extra axis in it. I don't understand how that would work.
I think it kind of distinguishes like which direction a slope is kind of facing. Let's say you have like a hill or like a big bump in the middle of your texture. Like one side of it will be purple, the other side will be green, and then there's one more color. Yeah. And it kind of just distinguishes like a little bit more accuracy.
Yeah, the direction. That's true. You're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gives a little bit more fidelity to a bump as opposed to just like up and down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's but essentially in its form. I mean, you can switch between a black and white bump map and then a normal map if you had them both, and they're gonna look pretty similar. It's not that big of a change. But anyways, normal map is the established standard. It's a purple looking map. You always identify it. There it is.
That's the purple one.
That's the purple one. That's the one I got to use, and you got to put it in the right spot, and there it is. And it gives you bump. So wood grain, right? It's the grain, so that as you run your nails across the wood, you would feel the little bumps. That's what it's detecting. And it typically makes a material look awesome. The moment you add it, you're like, aha, lovely.
Yeah.
And then the final map is displacement, which is related to the normal.
Which is also my favorite map.
Yeah?
Displacement map is my favorite, mainly just because what we use, Octane Render, utilizes displacement maps better than I think most renderers. Now, I don't use Cycle. Do you primarily use Cycles Renderer? Which is the proprietary Blender renderer.
I don't think it's proprietary. I think it's open source.
Oh, okay. I meant like it's like the main one that Blender uses.
Oh yes,
yeah, fair enough.
The default one, the
default. Yeah, it is.
But like, so the difference between say a normal map is that and a displacement map is that a displacement map actually displaces the geometry of the render. So whereas a normal map, if you put that on like a sphere, of like say a rocky pebble material, right, like a gravel road. When you're looking straight at the sphere, like in the center of it, with a light at a certain angle, you can change the angle of that light, and it'll look like the light is wrapping around the pebbles correctly. But when you look
Mm,
towards the edges of the sphere, you can still see that
it's
that
smooth.
sphere is perfectly smooth.
Yeah.
It kind of gives away the illusion a little bit. Because at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a hack. It's kind
Mhm.
of just hacking together. Oh, it's supposed to look this bumpy, whereas a displacement map legitimately makes it that bumpy.
Yes.
It pushes out or pulls in the geometry. And at Octane, that happens at the render level. It's not actually moving the polygons themselves of the 3D model.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the day, displacement maps weren't used because you would have to put so many polygons in your model. You'd have to subdivide to the point that like your 3D model was like a couple gigabytes just to be able to displace those polygons. But now with a displacement map, at least in Octane, probably other renders these days too, it happens at the rendering levels. You can have just a few polygons, but you still have like really nice finessed displacement.
Yeah, I think it's got different names, but micro displacement might be the term it's used to, define that. Yeah, when it goes to the rendering stage, that's when it starts displacing things.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I guess to explain to the viewers, like the normal map that we were mentioning doesn't add anything to the render times, which makes it amazing.
Oh, for
because
real?
you've got like, you
didn't know
got
that.
free rendering time.
Oh.
You went from a surface that looks flat and boring, you put a normal map on it, and it just looks amazing because it's free. Because the geometry of the thing didn't change. The little tiny wood grains and the little bumps, that's not actually there. It's just the illusion of it. That's why I think I tweeted once. It's like the guy who discovered the normal map must have been jumping up and down. Like, oh my God, we've just created like an infinite amount of detail for free.
I think they were originally developed for video games, like 10, 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more than 15 years ago, because it's like they're trying to get more detail in their video game assets. But of course, you run off consoles or old PCs at the time. They're kind of limited in terms of power. So it's like, we got to squeeze more ability out of our limited resources. And they came
Yeah.
up with normal maps, and that kind of changed the game for a lot of 3D games.
Yeah.
One
Like-
thing I love about your tutorials is the fact that you know where to save time, like in all these little spots, like you're saying with the normal map.
Yeah.
It's like
Uh-huh.
free render time.
Yeah.
Like that's so invaluable to me. Like to be able to know, hey guys, we got to save all the time here because time is money. Time is very valuable.
Yeah.
So like what. Where do you like are you just constantly looking for areas to I don't want to say cut corners, but like are you looking for areas to save time here and there in all aspects when you're working in 3D, or does it expand out into like you're saying with emails, the delegating and stuff,
Uh-huh.
So yeah, how you're trying to save time? How do you save time? How do you save more time?
Well, I mean, it depends on the project. Like, so I just made this kitchen tutorial, which I uploaded a couple weeks ago.
Great tutorial, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You saw it. Okay. And that one, because I did an animation through it, I had to cut those render times down.
Mm.
Mhm.
And because render times were like 24 minutes per frame
Oof, that's unacceptable.
with two GTX 1080 Ti's.
Dang, okay.
Yeah, it was really long, and I was like, oh my God. And then I remade the scene. So I just opened up a new scene and I remade it from scratch. And I got and then when I was remaking it, because I know everything that's there, this is actually a cool trick. Like, if you're making anything, even just for the sake of like, you're not making a tutorial, you've just finished something, a finished scene. If you just start a new file and you remade it, sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually, you'll get it done in like 1/10 of the time because you know what you're doing. You will discover so many errors in the original one, like a map that wasn't in the right spot, a feature that you turned on that you're not using anymore, but is now adding 50% more render time. You'll go like, okay, now I'm doing the lighting. I've got an HDR in this. Is that the right HDR? And then you go, what if it looks better without the HDR? What if I try and you do both of them? And that was when I discovered for this kitchen one that HDRs were doubling my render times and it wasn't adding anything to the thing. I went, what? So I just disabled it, saved half the render time there. And then it was like, then I had to learn to, the trees. I had these trees in the background. Trees are that is a problem to solve at Polygon. We want to try to make a tree which actually looks good but renders fast. And like you look around online, like all trees are just so complex.
Yeah.
It's like the worst asset that because trees are everywhere. If you're doing any sort of scene, even an interior, because you've got trees outside, trees are everywhere. You won't find a place on Earth that you really can't see trees unless you're in a desert. It was like, they're so complex. and they're so dense. And if the camera is moving, you can tell if it's a title card, like if it's a static card.
Like a flat
Yeah,
piece of paper.
exactly.
with an
So
image
you
on it cut
often
out.
need geometry if the camera is close enough to it. But in this case, I realized that if you render it just on a plane, the movement wasn't in like that bad that you couldn't that it was okay to have that. So anyway, like I don't do that all the time. Like I don't like optimize things down to like crush it as low as I can go. But in this case, I was sort of forced to. If I was just doing a still frame, I probably just would have left everything as it is.
Yeah. So you were in the need where you needed to save time.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, you're blowing my mind right now, though. That's crazy. So you build the scene, you do the thing. You're like, sweet. All right, 24 minutes. Like, I gotta cut some time down. So you start a new project and you redo it.
I typically do it 3 to 4 times.
That's so cool.
For a tutorial?
Yeah.
It's like when
Remake it from scratch 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
when you like, it's like when the power goes out and you lose and you forgot to save. And it's like, oh no, I lost all my work. I have to do it all over again. Like I just spent it could be whatever you were doing, whether it's sound design or 3D or editing. So you're saying to go back, you go back and you do it again, and you're gonna do it in like a third of the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'll do it really fast, and you'll just discover so many things that would make it better.
What
That
are
is
what are some
awesome.
examples of things you do not compromise in terms of time? Like, I mean, I know you're saying that you don't like necessarily try to make every step along the way super efficient, but what are things that no matter how much time you have to save, what are some examples of things that you're like, this is just how it is. It cannot get any faster than this because I refuse to let go of a certain amount of quality, or whatever.
In the image, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I typically go for photorealism, right? And to get
no
photo
big deal.
and to or at least aim for it, right? You don't always get there, but you aim for it. And to do that, you have to. There are certain things that, like if the camera was close enough to that tree, for one of the shots it actually was, so I just used the real tree. Then I would have to use the tree because I don't want something that's going to break the image, right? So that's it's discovering what you can't compromise on when you actually reach it. Like. What's another example? Yeah, like the geometry, like having physical displacement across something. That is typically, you obviously need a lot more of a denser mesh to have something like if you've got like a dirty like ground with rocks and all that kind of stuff on it, and then you want to use a displacement map on it, you've got to have more geometry because otherwise you're going to have like little spikes. Like
Well, that's
these
what
are
I'm
the
saying. In
rocks,
Octane, you don't have to have that really
Okay.
dense geometry.
Okay.
Because it's happening like after the fact. I can have like a single polygon, like a four-sided, four-edged polygon, and throw a nice displacement map over it, and it'll like look pretty good.
But then in that case, it must be doing.
It's probably displacing
Subdivision.
it or subdividing it, but it's happening at the render level, and it's happening pretty fast.
Yeah, but the mesh would still be there. What it could be doing, so we have just got it in Blender as well, adaptive subdivision, whereby the closer it is to the camera, the more it will subdivide it, and then the further in the background it will be less and less.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
That
so it like
sounds nice.
decimates it as it's needed. It's really cool. It
Interesting.
could be doing that. I haven't used Octane, but yeah.
And granted, I don't know enough about how it works behind the scenes to know if I'm actually telling the truth about that, but I'm pretty certain because I can get some pretty really fast results. Like it renders really fast. With
Octane's pretty fast, isn't it? I've heard.
it's fast in general,
Yeah.
But I've always found its use of displacement mapping to be its strongest feature.
Is Redshift available for Cinema 4D?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you used it?
No.
My friend uses Redshift. He swears by it.
Everybody's swearing. I really want to do a video doing a render engine comparison. Because I feel like, oh man,
that'd be
everybody's
great.
using a render engine because they sort of prefer it or they do this. But like, I haven't seen any actual like breakdown of the same scene in each rendering engine. Like Corona, everybody uses that in architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's CPU based only.
Ugh.
Yeah, which is.
Why? Like,
But they're like, we're proudly CPU based. I'm like, proud? Why are you proud about that? That's not good.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, but I supposedly it
I am
gives them better
proudly
results.
still starting my fires by rubbing two sticks together.
Yeah, proudly. Yeah.
But what do you say to the guys who don't have time to save time?
I mean, no,
Ooh.
that's understandable. In like if you're on a deadline and you've like literally got to just get this out, it could be cheaper to just put it out immediately because we've got to have this out in 5 hours and then send it to the render farm, and you just throw money at it to solve that problem. Because you can, like the same image. I was listening to a talk by a guy who worked on Star Wars, and he said he saved them $70,000 by for their renders, like because they had stuff in the background of these shots, and they were rendering them at 4K or whatever that was needed. And he's like, it's in the background, it's out of focus. Let's render it at a quarter of the size, and then just blur it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell the difference, and he saved them $70,000 or something in render
That's
times.
like
Yeah.
that's stuff that seems like it's like no brain, like because we're doing YouTube videos, we're not doing Star Wars.
We do that sort of thing all the time.
that's
Just
like
like
base.
by default.
That's normal, like
no one's gonna know the difference. I'm
Right.
gonna be adding fast blur to that anyway. I'm gonna render that at 720p, not 4K.
like part of me I understand. It's like Ren, you're like do 500 samples and then turn on the denoiser. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, but it's not gonna be as good if I do like 1,000 samples.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Because it feels like sometimes it feels like cheating. It's like I lower the bar too much and I lower the quality in my mind, and it's like, but even though it's I lower all these settings, like it still feels like it can't be. It's not as good as it could be. I get stuck on that sometimes.
No, but being the professional is, it's delivering work. It's being able to like, I think that's actually like a good thing. Like there are some artists you see on like ArtStation or the elsewhere online, and they just do like amazing photorealistic work, but they release like one artwork a year. And it's like, that was obviously a personal project, and they spent forever on it, and it looks amazing because it should, but that's not feasible in a work environment.
The most important thing an artist can do is just finish. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because you can work on something forever. You will always find things that you can perfect or change or enhance or polish. But at a certain point, obviously you have a lot of diminished returns at a certain point. And pretty much our entire business model here at Corridor is finding that exact moment where we start having diminished returns, where it's like, it's taking too much effort to make this slightly better. Let's just, that's good enough. Let's move on.
So do you have, you've got like a schedule for like, do you know like the next 3 videos you're going to do?
Next 5.
Next 5?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Which,
6.
for the record, usually isn't quite the case. We usually know what like the next 2 videos will probably be. Rarely 5 videos.
We're
out.
stepping up this year, man.
I know, we're trying hard.
How many videos are you delivering this year?
Well, what's half of 51, 20, 24? I don't know.
You're doing one every 2 weeks?
That's the plan,
that's the
man.
plan,
That's what
yeah.
we did last year.
I mean,
and
that's kind of been our plan forever. Like since the beginning of Corridor, their plan was put out a new video every other week. The challenge is maintaining that. There are times where it's like we end up kind of breaking into seasons where we'll go a couple months without uploading anything. Other times, like Sam and Nico will leave to go do some sort of YouTube Red show, and it's like, all right, our workforce is now cut in half. Obviously, we can't maintain that same schedule.
That's impressive.
It's only possible with a team.
That you've, because like there's a lot of like really good, successful YouTubers who are too much of a perfectionist, and you notice that their uploads start being like every 2 months, every 3 months.
That was me, man.
Really?
Oh yeah, my Punisher channel. Yeah, it was like 8 months for Carbon Warfare 2, frigging a year for this, a year for that, and then it's like, I'm not gonna be able to sustain a channel, a business. No way with that kind of thing. I can't just drop.
I think it's worth doing every once in a while, going all in till you really like perfect your artistic vision. But even within that, you still are like having to end it at certain parts.
You have to end it.
And that's what I was saying is like the most important thing an artist can do is be like, all right, this is done. It is finished. I'm hitting the render button. I'm hitting the export button. I'm hitting the upload button. Whatever it is that you do to like conclude the project. Nothing is more important than that.
Yeah. Like I would say this, like, because we get a lot of like portfolios at Polygon.
Okay.
And if we see one where they have done like 1 or 2 really amazing pieces of artwork, but you can see looking at their timeline, they worked on it for a year. That's less impressive than somebody who got like 70, 80% of the way, but they've been doing regular work. Or especially when it's been for a client, because you know that a client had a deadline and a budget and they could deliver on that. Because like that's the thing. If you want to do this as a job, you have to realize that you're no longer an artist anymore. What you're creating is, I don't know if the word is commodity, but it's like there's an expense to the amount of time you're spending on something, and the client has a budget. You have to meet that budget, and telling them, oh, but it would be so much better if I could spend 5 more days on it. They don't give a shit. It's your job to make it work as well as you can, the best you can within the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the best guys we've had work for us was somebody who would we would tell him the deadline and he'd be like, all right. And he would do what he could within that. And you'd find out that he cut corners everywhere he could because he had to meet it. He didn't ever come to us and go, sorry, gonna need another 2 days, another 3 days. He never said. He was always ready at the right time, because that is the mark of a professional. That is it. It's you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to release. Being a perfectionist, it's overrated. It's really overrated. And if you look at, I talked about it in, I've got a talk on YouTube, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Artists. You can't watch it in America.
Really?
For some reason, it's got a trademark. And the creators are it was, I did it at the Blender conference. Okay. And so it was posted to the Blender YouTube channel. It's got 2 million views, but you can't find it in America.
Dude, you got to send it to us, man, because that sounds good. I want to watch that.
But yeah, I think it's because I used the title, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Artists, based off that book by Stephen Covey. I think it's a trademarked name.
Well, that sucks.
Well, anyways, you can just type in the name. I'm sure somebody's re-uploaded it, whatever. But anyway, I talk about why being a perfectionist isn't good. You think being a perfectionist works to your advantage, but it actually doesn't. The top artists in history, like Picasso, you know him for a few paintings. If you look at his work, he's done thousands, it was something like 1,000, 1,500 tapestries. It was several thousand paintings, several thousand sketches. Just the volume of work is insane. But you only know him for a few things.
And biting his ear off. Or something like that. Ripping his ear off. I don't know.
Right.
I've already said more than I actually know.
Possible?
Yeah, that's...
It's like...
and the other... And it was... I can't remember which book it was from, but yeah, it was saying they had a look at the composers, like Mozart, Beethoven, all those, the top composers. There's a direct correlation between the volume of work they produced and the number of hits they had. The higher the volume of work they produced, the greater chance they had of having a hit. You don't know which one's going to become a hit, which one's going to
Ain't that the truth?
Right?
You never know which video is going to be successful.
Yeah.
Tell us a video that you were surprised it didn't have as good a success as.
Oh gosh, all of them?
Oh yeah?
No. That's. I mean, there's a couple videos that we put a lot of effort into. I know a few years ago we did a video called Drone Star Wars, which we thought was so epic. It was using really cool new filmmaking through drone racing, and we put a whole Star Wars theme behind it. We're like, this video is gonna be our most successful video of all time, and it performed average. I was like, okay. We did a video last year called Anime Fast and the Furious. Yeah. And that was a video we put a lot of time into, and we thought it was really cool, really epic, and it also just kind of performed average. And then we
Anime
had this,
self-driving car, right?
Yeah. And then it's we'll do a video where Sam's like, hey, what if we just try to make a GTA video and just walk around and punch people in the face, pretend, obviously it's a video, and we'll spend a week on it. Or let's shoot a video on an iPhone where we pretend to have a lightsaber that doesn't stop growing. Stuff like that, and then that just blows up, and it's well,
I think it was the thumbnail for
see that coming,
because I saw that in my feed with the plane chopped in half. I'm like, I gotta see that.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort. It's we put a lot of effort into our thumbnails, and
explain to the folks. You've got a guy whose full-time job is thumbnails.
Basically, yeah.
That's crazy.
Gabe, shout out to Gabe, man, killing it.
The audience knows Gabe. He's pretty much the biggest sweetheart of a grizzly bear. He's so soft-spoken, but really talented, and he has a lot of responsibilities, as we all do, but his biggest responsibility is making thumbnails, because at the end of the day, the thumbnail and title is the barrier to entry to anyone viewing a YouTube video. It's that is the filter to anyone. The video can be amazing or it can be terrible. It doesn't matter. There's not the biggest correlation between how good a video is and how many views it is, as much as there is between how good the thumbnail and title is and how many views it has.
Right.
So it's if we can make our thumbnails better, and it's not just a quality thing either. It's does this grab an audience's eye at such a small little postage stamp size? Is the title enticing enough without being too clickbaity and all that stuff? It's really, really hard.
It is actually, yeah. Because I was gonna ask you guys how you go about making those thumbnails. Maybe I should talk to Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe,
Gabe.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
like some of our older videos that maybe didn't perform very well, like Anime Fast and Furious, for instance, that used to be called Anime Self-Driving Cars. And we
Mhm.
did two things after the video had like 500,000 views after like a couple months, I think. More than that. And we went back and we changed the title to Anime Fast and Furious, a little bit more of a known IP, a little bit
More relatable.
yeah, more relatable. And we changed the thumbnail to be, I think, a little bit more ridiculous even. And within a week, got another million views.
Whoa!
Just doing that. So it was like basically
Holy crap!
to a certain degree, it was like free exposure and free money just by doing a small little change, and suddenly the video got a lot more viewership just off of that little bit of effort.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Because it's like
and-
you think of the amount of people that worked on that video and like
Yeah.
all the acting, the lighting, the grip, the gaff, all that kind of thing. Doesn't matter if the thumbnail wasn't right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like what?
Exactly.
You get double the results by tweaking one little tiny thing. It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
so we've been
is.
going back and trying to like identify what, like
Whoa.
maybe like our bottom like 30% performing videos and just like changing the thumbnail and title on them and seeing what happens. Like we did a video last
Damn.
year. I guess it's technically before your time, but it was the son Brett dressed up as a zombie. It was like a zombie matador type video, and
Mm.
that video got like maybe 300,000 views. And then like at the end of the year, we had changed the thumbnail and title, and I think that video is sitting at like 5 or 6 million views now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Well, you know, when you say you changed it to like Fast and Furious, is there ever a danger of that IP guy coming and taking money from you? Or like demonetizing a video?
I mean, I don't think that. I mean, in a title, I don't think that's possible
Okay.
because if they did make us think about it, we could just change the name of it. But I don't
Huh.
think they even have the right to that.
Mm.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't
This
know.
this is a question for Jake. I'm not
Yeah.
too familiar with like copyright law or anything like that, but
Okay, yeah.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to quantity and consistency versus being a perfectionist, right?
Mhm.
So you think that is the key to getting better at a craft and to honing in your skills and being a professional is consistency. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the thing though. There has to be, you can go too far. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think daily renders are a good idea.
Oh, what about
are you not a Beeple fan?
I do like people's work. He's a standout outlier in the case that he does do amazing professional work on the side, and he does these videos which are really high polished.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference between that and his daily renders.
Yeah.
His daily renders, you can tell it took a day.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble with, I think, a day render is that if you limit yourself down too far, there's only so much, for one, there's only so much you can do, but also you're going to limit how far you'll explore into things, challenges, right? Because like, what's something you're not good at in 3D? Like, not your strong suit.
Hair.
Modeling.
Modeling a character.
Animating, dude.
Okay.
Animating.
Yeah. So if I gave you a day to do something, and you had to deliver something at the end of the day, you're not going to do that.
Nope.
Exactly. But to be a good artist, you got to challenge yourself.
Yes.
You got to learn these new things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a day is too short of a time. I think a week is good because I think you can do a lot in a week. You're not going to be able to make a short film. You're not going to be able to pull that off, maybe.
Yeah.
But a week for a single image to do it properly, I think that's enough time.
Now, but that, I mean, it's enough time to make like a good image and learn something, but like how productive is that week? Because we can't really do that here at Corridor where it's like, I'm going to spend a week making an image. It's like, all right.
Oh, right.
No, but yeah, like what if someone's job is to do an image every day for someone's Instagram, right? A
Yeah.
daily render.
Yeah.
What do you tell them? Like what do you say? Like, hey, you know, you need to expand, you need to reach outside of the box, and you need to challenge yourself. But they only have a day. So what do you do?
If they only have a day,
Only have a day or a week. You know, depend. It's just the scale. Like they have to deliver a month's worth in a week, or they have to deliver.
right? Well, I mean, in that case, you've got to pull from. You got to find ways to cut down that time. Like I think Beeple uses several asset libraries. He doesn't model the cars and the buildings and all that stuff in it. He just pulls from it. So you got to get good at that.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, you definitely would get good at figuring where to cut corners to make something look bigger than it actually was, using backplates instead of rendering the full scene. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to make it sound like daily renders are like a terrible idea. That you will learn, but the trouble is for a beginner, it's a terrible piece of advice to tell people to do a daily render, because and they say this for like when I was learning painting and drawing, and I messaged a bunch of like famous painters and drawers and things, and I told them I'm going to spend 6 months learning drawing and painting. I want to get good at it, and I got a series of questions. Can I ask you some questions? Like, yeah. I said, what is a common mistake people have when they come to like painting or drawing? And some guy said something I always remembered. He said, speed painting is terrible advice for a beginner. There's lots of pros that put out these videos where they show they painted this environment. It took them, they do it in like 1 hour.
Yeah.
For a beginner, that's horrible, because if you try to do that, you're not going to understand what you're doing. You're not going to know where you can cut corners, and you're going to adopt sloppy habits. So if you're just learning 3D and you're doing a daily render, you're going to have sloppy habits. Your materials aren't going to be perfect because you don't know materials. You don't understand all the maps and all that kind of thing. You're not going to have the right lighting. The color is going to be off. You're going to make so many mistakes repeatedly. If you got feedback on each of those images from like if you're in a class and the professor or the top teacher, whatever, what are the name? Tutors, whatever, was like there to give you feedback on every image, I think it's valuable. Like you could learn from that.
Yeah.
But most people aren't in a position where they can have regular feedback.
Yeah. People want to solo on the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to learn their scales first.
Yeah, the fundamentals.
So what are the fundamentals of 3D? What are the scales?
I think it's actually good
That's a good
to
question.
break it off and do like, spend the right time on, like, okay, so modeling is the foundation of the building.
Okay.
Right? If you got a wrong model, it's not going to look good.
Yeah.
It's got like not enough polys, and you got like wonky bits. Doesn't matter what, it's gonna look crap.
Yeah.
So you got to learn good modeling. Modeling now is less about polys and like what was it called? Poly modeling. Yeah, poly modeling. Like when I started, and maybe when you guys started, it was like doing things poly by poly to
Yeah.
model things. That's less the case now. It's more ZBrush and then retopo.
Yeah.
Like, because it used to be so important to have like a really
Like modeling something out of digital clay would be ZBrush, right?
exactly. Yeah. And you start with like, you just go ZBrush and you just go all extreme poly, like high poly counts. But then you just retopo it automatically with ZRemesh or something like that. But it allows you to work creatively. But yeah, like okay, so if you want to be if you want to make characters, the best thing you could learn is anatomy. Learn the anatomy of the face. Like so many character models I see, they just don't know the anatomy, and therefore it looks wrong. And they might say, "Oh, but it's stylized." It's like, well, don't do stylized yet. You're not there, because you need to have good anatomy in stylization as well.
It's like you have to know what the rules are before you know how to break them.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the modeling, and then once you've got a good model, then you probably want to learn how to, lighting or texturing, depends which one you go for. But texturing, that's obviously learning what shaders do. Like if you're making a face, like where you should have like, I don't know, like what's the albedo, and then like the wrinkles, like that kind of thing, like using Substance Painter, that kind of thing. You can go really deep into texturing, and then lighting.
Sorry, what do you mean by albedo, real quick?
Oh, diffuse, the color
Okay.
map.
The
Yeah.
color.
The color map, yeah. The
Yeah.
color, the gloss, the bump, all that stuff we were talking about. And then, lighting. I'm actually about to do like a series on like design theory.
Cool.
So like lighting, composition, and color, and then maybe if I can figure it out, visual hierarchy. That's a new thing.
Cool. Can we expect those videos next week?
Maybe not.
Well, maybe once you have a COO, you can start
delegate.
focusing more on that.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah.
love your theory videos, man.
They're
They're
good.
Thanks.
Very
Yeah.
well structured, well thought out, well delivered, and everything.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I enjoy making them because I have to learn it myself to make the video.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
discover all this stuff.
Extra level.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. I like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about that time that we start wrapping this up.
Man.
What about deepfakes?
Oh, that's right. Okay. We had a conversation over the weekend where you mentioned that you didn't think deepfakes were going to be a big deal. And I was like, what? But then I had to like restrain myself because I was like,
what's deepfakes?
we have to save this conversation for the podcast. So here we are.
Yeah.
Now, deepfakes are a thing that have come out over the last year or two, which is basically an image processing effect that uses machine learning to help make really realistic fakes. But at the end of the day, basically it just means transplanting someone's face onto the body of someone else in a video or an image or something. And it's remapping all the facial features to that person's face, no matter how they're moving their head. And what it comes down to is you can literally make anyone do anything or say anything at the end of the day.
Have you seen the video of Obama saying stuff and he's talking and it's actually voiced by Jordan Peele? It looks like he's saying it, but he's not.
Is it a Key and Peele skit?
No, it was actually for BuzzFeed.
Oh, no. I've never seen that video.
Okay. It sort of went viral and that was sort of the trigger that everyone freaked out because it was, people were like, oh, you could use this like politically to make a politician say something.
Whoa.
Yeah, because so this is
Whoa.
what. Yeah, exactly. You can make anyone you want. You can put them in a really difficult position where it's like I can make this person be amongst really racist people saying really racist things when that person is not a racist. But there's video evidence now of them doing this, and it destroys any foundation of trust because that person, especially now, can be like, oh, but that is fake. And before deepfakes were a thing, it was like, well, what are you talking about? No one can do that. Obviously, it's not fake. But now, not only can you do that and put them in a difficult position, they can deny it and be like, no, it's fake, even if it is a real video.
Mm-hmm. The
So
video is not authentic. That video of me punching a baby,
Yeah.
somebody faked it. So here's the thing, right?
You don't think it's a big deal?
I think the media is doing what they're very good at, which is making people scared of new technology.
That is fair. They do that.
Okay, so for starters, it's not new, okay? The ability to make somebody say something. Forrest Gump came out in 1994.
Mhm.
That had politicians saying and doing stuff that was not them, obviously. That was 94, okay? So the difference is they needed a huge team of very skilled artists to make that look real.
Right.
Whereas now it can be done by a 13-year-old on his little crappy computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not new. It's just that the barrier to entry is now so
Exactly.
much lower. Okay, but you still have a huge challenge ahead of you. Okay, to make something to look real. Okay, so if I was to Photoshop someone doing something, you could probably fool a lot of people, right? You could put it in front of like a photo expert, a forensic person to have a look at it, and he might adjust the levels, figure out that he might be able to spot that it was fake.
See the scars.
Yeah. With a video, you've got 30 frames a second and the added challenge of animation on top of it. So you've got to nail it 30 times a second, and you've got to do the animation just perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to look right. So it is actually a big challenge. There's only been a few videos. There's only actually one. It was somebody put Nicolas Cage on Rachel Adams' face.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really the only one where I've been like, okay, that's actually very good. The others, a little wonky. And if it's
Yeah.
like even one frame off as they turn their head, that the nose doesn't exactly line up.
tell,
It's like,
yeah.
it's off.
Yeah.
The blinking is another big one. Doesn't blink enough. The eyelids don't.
No, certainly, because humans are very good at reading faces. That's why the whole like
Incredibly good.
uncanny valley thing is like the closer you get to like actual reality, the further away you get because it's like it's uncanny. It's something seems off. But here's the thing though. Those are all just technical current
Absolutely.
limitations. Hypothetically, let's say we get to a point where machine learning has gotten so good that it can just take any input of a video and any input of a face and replace a person within that video so flawlessly, even machine analysis can't tell the difference between what is real and versus fake. Because that's just like, if you throw any amount of progress, it's like at a certain point, it's going to get that good, assuming that rate of progress maintains.
Mm-hmm.
And these days, all evidence is pointing to that rate of progress is actually accelerating.
It's gonna get there, man. Like, so you're skeptical that it won't even happen?
No. Okay. So it probably will.
Mhm.
I mean, for one, a lot of people are just saying, oh, AI will figure it out, which people say that a lot. It's the magic box of AI. Like, yeah, I mean, it'll do it. It's going to get there eventually. Like, will it though? I mean, you don't actually. I mean, people have been making wild predictions since the '60s about AI.
Yeah.
Alan Turing himself predicted that a machine would pass the Turing test by the year 2000. Back when nuclear power was big, they thought that we were going to have nuclear vacuum cleaners. In the 1950s,
That's great.
they thought when they had rockets that we were going to be delivering rocket mail, right?
Oh,
Like
wow.
when you deliver international mail by
Yeah.
rockets, right? So there are predictions
that might
that don't.
still be a thing. Maybe. Maybe if SpaceX is successful, that is their exact mission.
Yeah. So the thing is like, yeah, it looks it looks convincing now. There's still a lot of limitations, and will it get there? Yet to be decided. I did a lot of research on the AI thing. I haven't seen any AI yet be able to understand the geometry of something, the depth, like, and I feel like that's a big part of this.
Okay.
Because when like the big tell is like the moment they turn their head, the perspective doesn't line up properly. Like the lighting has to match it as well. You've got to put the highlights in the right area because the skin has to reflect it, the right thing. Like understanding, I feel like understanding geometry is a big part of it. There's also other tells, like you can, like the blood actually goes to the face, and you can see that there's actually I don't know if it's got a name, but it will enhance the shades of blood in the face, so you can actually see blood pumping to the face. Okay,
Wow.
you can't see that in this AI, this neural network thing. So that's a
Interesting.
big tell. That's not there. But then maybe that'll be there in the future. They'll figure that one out. The eyelids, they'll figure that one out. Okay, let's say that happens. Okay, what's the downside of videos no longer being truthful? What's the big scare? Because they're saying the sky is falling.
Well, it just makes it so that everything is deniable. I can go out and literally punch someone in the face with full well knowing that lots of cameras are around recording that. But then I can turn around and literally be like, no, that didn't happen. And you have to prove that it. But it's like if your only proof is a video that is fakeable, like where I mean, I'm not saying that it's an impossible challenge to solve. Deep fakes being such a common thing that anyone can just do at 100% quality. I'm just saying it's like it is a challenge and it is a problem. I think.
Yeah.
And I know some people are some politicians are starting to introduce laws and bills into place that would
Australia's got one.
Would make it illegal to make a deep fake or at least it would make it illegal to
against somebody's will.
Yeah, put someone's likeness against their will onto someone else's thing. And
like there's a girl in Australia who she doesn't know who's doing it, but they keep making a deep fake of her, doing like porn acts.
Yeah,
and she doesn't know who's doing it.
Wow.
And they just keep uploading new and new things, and she's like, so that she got a bill passed in Australia.
And I'm not entirely convinced that making it illegal is a bad idea. I think it might actually, I mean, but I don't know, because then you might just reduce the widespread use of it so much that it will happen. Because it's still going to happen, you know, like crime still happens.
Yeah.
But then it might just be less so that when it does happen.
You think these people are like uploading it currently under their real name?
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Of course, it's not, yeah.
But
they're
like,
already shady. It's a bill. What's it going to do? Nothing.
Nothing at all.
I mean, if the repercussions are strong enough, it might make them think twice.
Well,
You know,
people
like,
still torrent.
yeah,
People still download illegally. Like,
yeah.
you get a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, we found you downloading this," and it's like,
Okay, so here's the other side of it. Okay, so it would erode our trust in video.
absolutely.
Yes. Just like we've already done with photos. So this is the thing. It's directly comparable to Photoshop.
Yeah.
In the 90s, when Photoshop started becoming a thing, think about how scared people were when Photoshop was around. Like, oh my goodness, you can't trust photos anymore. Now you can see when there's you could Photoshop the president doing something that he didn't do. You can make him look like he was performing sexual acts on someone.
Yeah.
This could cause World War III. Exactly the same
That
stuff
is a
they're
good
saying
point. And we
with
don't
this.
ever really see that. We never really see.
What's happened is education. The public has learned that this is what Photoshop can do. We've adapted.
Mm-hmm.
It will change things for sure, but it's not the end of the world. And this is the thing that I
For
didn't
the record,
like.
I'm not suggesting it's like gonna be a huge catastrophic problem.
Oh, no. But all the news, I mean, they love harping on the, like,
Yeah.
oh, someone could make a video of Donald Trump saying he's just launched a nuclear warhead, and then it's going to actually start, you know, like they're jumping to like the craziest scenarios that like video is like, I just don't see how it's any different to photos. And we adapted to photos. When you see a billboard of a sexy girl, like, you know that she's been airbrushed. Everybody knows she's been airbrushed.
Mhm.
It's going to be the same with a video. It's
yeah,
like,
but it's like I feel that video is kind of like the last bastion of reality. You know, it's like
Yeah.
and
and obviously as visual effects artists, we are pushing the border of that.
But that's
Yeah.
entertainment versus politics. If it's in politics, then it's like, yo, like, I already don't trust what I mean, I don't really watch the news, to be honest, but like, someone else is telling me something, I'm like, let me look into that, you know? And if they're like looking into it as an article or a video or a speech or whatever, like, maybe they'll just have to do speeches in like disco ball lighting where like it's really hard to do, you know, the deep fake on it, you know?
yeah,
I think the other thing is like, it's exciting and it's cool, but the news is just like jumping over, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, guys, why aren't we talking about Photoshop? Like, they start the article like, imagine a world where like anyone could make you look like you're doing something, make you look like you're performing sexual acts on somebody else, make you look like you're being violent. And I'm like, you mean like Photoshop? The thing we've had for the last 20 years already?
yeah.
Like, it'll change things for sure, but it's not. And the other thing, oh yeah, okay, so this is what I was gonna say. The consequence for being caught making a fake video, like let's say a political party or Russia wanted to make, I don't know, Donald Trump. Like, there's a video of Donald Trump in an elevator punching his wife, right? Okay, let's say that happens, right? The consequence of being caught making a fake, as in it goes up online, but then experts look at it and they break it down and then they show video that it's been faked. The consequence of that looks terrible
That is
for
true.
you.
Yeah.
So you have to nail it perfectly in order to pull it off.
Oh, yeah.
And if it was in a court case, like if you had somebody like trying to frame somebody for murder or something,
Mhm.
then you're in really deep trouble.
That is
Because
a
you-
very good point. Yeah.
Like, so the consequence is huge. So that's stacked, like that's preventing a lot of people from trying it. Because a lot of people aren't video experts
It's
and
not
they won't.
preventing the White House from doing it.
No?
Well, they did that video where it's like they sped up the footage a little bit, so it made it look like the guy like karate chopped a woman's arm.
Wasn't that? Yeah, that was immediately found out though.
It was
Like, that was embarrassingly bad.
It was. It was. Yeah.
That was so dumb.
That was like found out like the day of.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could tell that was so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying like it's not a big deal. Like, it's gonna change things. It's I was just surprised, like reading on Twitter, like all these friends in the industry. Oh, it's the
Yeah.
end of the thing. I'm like, what about Photoshop? We're talking about this.
Well, it's the same
We've-
argument about how like, oh, AI is gonna take all our jobs. It's like it's not gonna take them as much as just morph them.
Yeah, change them a bit.
Yeah.
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 And it
People are averse to change anyways. I mean, it's gonna change and we'll figure it out. We'll adapt.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure
We'll
it out.
Figure it out. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
It's been a
man.
pleasure talking with you.
Yeah,
I really
you
hope
too.
the rest of your stay here in America is great, and maybe we'll see you again if you move back.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. It's
With
been
a-
fun.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Andrew Price, everyone, from Blender Guru, and see you later. And all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and watching or listening. This was a really fun podcast. I know Clint and I both really enjoyed it. So thanks again to Andrew Price for showing up and sitting with us, having some good discussions. And if you want to see more of this sort of thing, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corridor Cast. Or you know what? If you just want to listen to it, that's cool too. You can find them on pretty much any of your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or iTunes, whatever floats your boat. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.